afternoon, teachers. As you know, I'm Principal Amanda Basinger of ABC Elementary School. I brought you all in this afternoon to have a professional development session, so to speak. I want to give 5 suggestions that may help you improve your instruction. Now, these are just suggestions. It's not rule, it's not law. I just want to try to help you improve to your instructions and to help your students learn. So I created a worksheet that has 5 or so questions on it, and the first one is a puzzle wheel. This is going to give you, on the next slide, all 5 of my suggestions. So if you just want to fill in each block in your own words, that'll help you remember. So as we go over it, please fill it in. The first one, allowing your students to mentally and physically manipulate information. The second one, recognize that you will not be able to address the various abilities and cognitive styles of all of your students all of the time. 3, use reinforcement and use it appropriately to strengthen behaviors you want to encourage in your classroom. 4, give clear instructions, hold students accountable for carrying them out, and provide frequent feedback. Last, but certainly not least, as early as possible in a report period, decide when and how often to give tests and other assignments that will count towards a grade. And you also want to announce those assignments well in advance. Take some time to copy that down. You'll have some more time later because now we're going to go into a little bit more depth with each of these suggestions. I'm also going to give you a little bit of examples with each. So, my first suggestion is allowing your students to mentally and physically manipulate information. Also on your worksheet, I've given you questions. Most are fill in the blank, or some are writing, so please follow along. As we know, information can be learned and transmitted from the teachers to the student. But knowledge can also be learned from each student themselves through multiple things: manipulation, activity, exploration, discussion, and application of information. For example, say we're all teaching a lesson on vocabulary. You've taught the kids, or the students, the vocabulary words with definitions and examples, whether an example in a sentence or an example in their lives. So my suggestion is an activity that's going to break up your vocabulary lesson. It's called Slap Clap. What you're going to do is you're going to set students in groups with a table so they can all surround the table. And they're going to be groups about 3 to 4, depending on your class size. What you're going to do is you're going to place index cards on each table that have the vocabulary words on it. You're going to say a vocabulary word out loud, and the first student to slap that card is awesome. You get to praise them for that. They're really quick at recognizing the word and the spelling as well. But you want to take it to another level. You not only want to have this activity that we talked about, but you also want to add a discussion in. So what you can do is you can have the table of students discuss, okay, well, here's the word. What does it mean? And they come up with a definition and an example, and then all of the groups will share with the class what they come up with. So this is a chance to explore your different words and what kind of experiences they can bring to the table with their examples and their application of information. You just taught them their vocabulary words, now they're actually using it. So it's a great activity to break up that vocabulary lesson. The kids are learning for themselves, not just from us. My second suggestion, and if you turn the page on your worksheet, there's space there to write some notes and also fill in the blank. My suggestion is to recognize that you will not be able to address the various abilities and cognitive styles of all your students all of the time. While it is important for you to gear your instruction to different learning styles of your students, I can't say to strive to accommodate the unique needs of each student every minute of every day. So to find sitting here working with a student one-on-one, the rest of the class is either sitting and talking or working on their assignment, but they're not getting attention from me and help from me. So it's an idea that's saying that I shouldn't tell you to not make an attempt to get to know your students and to work with your students individually either. Something that I came up with that may help you to visit each student, but not every single minute of every single class, that takes away from your other students. An example I came up with is setting up a system where students who are proficient in a subject, for instance spelling, they become an expert for the day. What that tells the other students is that, oh, they're awesome at spelling. I'm not so awesome at spelling. I might need some help. So instead of coming to my teacher, where she's kind of busy, I can go to another student and say, hey, expert, can you help me out on this? And it frees up you as teachers to circulate the classroom and help one-on-one, but not spend that every single minute of your class period on one student, because they're paired up with another student. They're with an expert who's helping them and guiding them along the way. So while they're working with another student, we can go around and help others. And this is going to allow you to have individual time with each student twice a month, which is a pretty good statistic. My fourth suggestion is using reinforcement, and to use it appropriately to strengthen behavior that you want to encourage within your classroom. So this kind of comes up as a question, well, don't I already do this? And why are you reminding me of this? Well, I hope that you're using reinforcement, but I also hope that you're using positive reinforcement or feedback. It's one and the same. But studies have found that teachers praise students only 2% of the observed time, which really isn't a lot when you think about how many students you have in a classroom, average of 25 here at the school. So I came up with 7 guidelines for effective use of positive reinforcement or positive feedback. 1, use the weakest reward available to strengthen a behavior. So don't use those material rewards like a sticker or eraser or candy when you know that simple verbal praise is effective. Start with that verbal praise, and if that doesn't get through to the student, then you move on to the material rewards that will help them build self-esteem because you're giving them that positive reinforcement. The second guideline is avoid using reward as incentives. Students are going to pick up on this pretty easily. If I say, oh, here's an assignment, if you do it, I'm going to give you something. That's just going to have them expect that reward from you every single time you give them an assignment. So you want to tell them, oh, here's an assignment, and then afterwards give them that reward. Give them that verbal praise or that class free time if they've done well. My third guideline is reward at a high rate in the early stages of learning and reduce frequency of reward as learning progresses. So those students who are having trouble at the very beginning teaching them math or science, you're going to give them a lot of praise all the time. And that's going to get them excited and, oh, I can do this, I can do this. And then at the end, when they've got it, they understand it, they're doing great, don't just stop the reinforcement, but don't give it as free. 4, reward only the behaviors you want repeated. Students often pick up on what is and isn't being reinforced. So don't praise a student for their creativity on their writing and then tell them not to worry about their spelling, because what's going to happen to their spelling? It's going to go down. It's going to get worse. So you want to have praise for what you want repeated, what you want seen in your classroom. 5, what may be a reinforcer for one student may not be for another. For example, if I have a student come up to the board and help me explain something or show something, a simple smile might be enough to reinforce that student, but if I have another student come up, that smile may not be a reinforcer to them. It may be a phrase, oh, that was a great help, thank you. Now that may be a positive reinforcer. So basically with reinforcing, it's not straight across the board. It's going to be different for each student, most of the time. 6, set standards so that success is a realistic possibility for each student. So reward that student for making steady progress from wherever their baseline performance was when they began the term. This is going to show them, hey, I've improved, I've done awesome, keep going, you can do this. 7, students become intrinsically motivated or take personal pride and satisfaction in simply doing well. As teachers, we need to take the instructional opportunity to point this out, to say, hey, take some personal pride in your work. Explore with the students how satisfying and how awesome it is to write a clear and interesting story. Does anybody else need time to finish up the 7 guidelines? Got them in your own words? Awesome. So, my 4th suggestion is give clear instructions. Hold students accountable for carrying them out and provide frequent feedback. So teachers, if you give your students very broad instructions very quickly, are they often confused and ask a lot of questions? If so, we need to slow down. We need to talk clearer and give better, clear instructions. Also, if you write it down, either on the board or on their worksheet or anywhere else that they may be able to see it, that's going to help. If you slow down and give clear instructions, it's going to cut down on your instruction time, because you're not going to lay over here with one student asking one question and then across the classroom that another student asks the same question. You're not going to be answering questions all the time. If you go over and say, oh, what was, the student says, what was step number 3? Well, it's here on your worksheet. Can you tell me what it is? And that's going to give them the opportunity to step up and say, oh, yes, I remember that. So it's really going to help with your instruction. You also want to hold your students accountable for their assignment. For instance, give them a deadline. Tell them, hey, I'm going to give this assignment to you. It needs to be done by Tuesday. I'm going to hold you accountable for getting it in on time. So you also want to provide frequent positive feedback. You want to try to stay away from negative feedback because it's going to break that student's self-confidence down and self-efficacy. And you want to build them up, not break them down, right? So I have a few videos for you. Both having to do with positive feedback or positive reinforcement. The first video, there's a teacher in an elementary school classroom, and she is walking around helping students with different assignments. There's also a co-teacher in the background who is doing reading assignments with another pair of students, so you'll hear them talking in the background. But focus on the one teacher that we see at the very beginning. She goes around and talks with individual students.
I like the way you are sharing now and taking turns. While he's doing that, can you get the next one going?
Mama, I love how you're sitting up tall. Way to go. Daisy, I'm glad you're still working.
You know, right? Don't even say it. You know. Like you know in your brain. Okay, here we go. Red table.
Let me explain this real quick. I got a little lost when I viewed it myself the first time. When she said red table, she is dismissing the table with the red chairs, the students back to their desk. She wants to see how quietly and how well they can do this. So that's what she meant by red table.
hear at all. Can you hear? Can't hear. Can't hear. I noticed that was kind of a long time for you to sit still, but I gotta tell you, you really watched me and kept your eyes on me. I think I'm all excited. You got yourself back under control, so I'm really proud of you. Thanks, Lucinda. Have a seat.
So this teacher did really well with her positive feedback. Did you notice that she didn't say anything negative to any of her students? The very first group of students, I'll rewind the video back so we can take a look. But this pair of students right here, she went over and she said, "Thank you for sharing. Thank you for working together," which was great. And then she redirected the young girl's actions. "Well, he's working on this. Can you get a head start on this for me?" So she redirected that, sometimes teachers call it talkativeness. So she redirected that in a positive way. The next time we see her is she's up at the front of the class and she begins to walk around and she sees a student, calls them by name and says, "I love how you're sitting up straight." And then she moves on and she says, "I love how you're continuing to work and you're staying on task." Then she goes on with the red table, and this student at the end, I absolutely love what she did here. Let me replay it one more time.
I noticed that was kind of a long time for you to sit still, but I gotta tell you, you really watched me and kept your eyes on me. I think I'm all excited. You got yourself back under control, so I'm really proud of you. Thanks, Lucinda. Have a seat.
So she realized that there was a negative behavior here. He sat in his seat and he was very anxious. He wanted to get up and move. But she veered away from that. She said, "I noticed it took you a little bit, but I appreciate that you did so well at this." And she praised him for watching her, and she focused on the positive of it. So it made him feel good that, oh, she saw me watching her, and she saw that I did a good job, and that I was excited, but I got it under control really quickly. So it really was building that student up instead of tearing him down with the negative feedback. I have one more video for you, and this is coming from a preschool where one of the teachers has 4 students around her in a reading circle. She also does a lot of positive feedback in this video as well. So let's take a look.
Jennifer here from Rainbow Academy Early Learning Centers with some tips on positive reinforcement. If I told you, don't think of a pink elephant, more than likely the first thing that just popped into your mind was a pink elephant. Getting preschool children to behave the language you want is as easy as speaking their language, using praise and approval as opposed to no's and don'ts. Preschool children typically want just to please adults. They're looking for approval and definitely appreciation. So here are some tips on some positive reinforcement skills. Point at a behavior that you approve of and want repeated or duplicated by other children.
Jack, good job sitting crisscross applesauce. Very nice, Jack. I'm absolutely loving this. This makes me so happy.
Make sure that you use specific names and point out the actual behavior and how it makes you feel.
Neil, wonderful job sitting nice there. Love it. Good job. Anushka, good job, Gavin. Great. That makes me so happy.
Praising others as they begin to prove to you that they are capable of pleasing you will help boost their self-esteem. Now these tips are applicable to any action that you would like repeated, such as cleanup time.
We're going to get ready to clean up and put our books away. Jack, you can put your book away first nicely on the shelf. Stand up and we're going to line up behind the chair. Can you do that for us? Great job. Anushka, can you do the same thing as Jack? Very nice, Jack. Oh, excellent job, Anushka. Gavin, you too. And line up.
You can see that each child wants to be praised and waits for their own personal praise by Miss Tiffany when putting the book away and lining up.
Good job.
So remember, children between ages 2.5 and 5 years of age really look to adults for an approving eye. Paying attention to positive behaviors will help diminish behaviors that are unwanted and really help boost a child's self-esteem.
So, with this video, she used a lot of positive feedback. Going back to our reading circle, she noticed that the other students weren't sitting the way she wanted them to sit. They weren't sitting crisscross applesauce. But instead of saying, Anushka, why are you sitting like that? Can you sit crisscross applesauce for me? Instead of doing that in a negative tone, she focused on Chad. She called his name out and said, Chad, I love the way you're sitting crisscross applesauce. It makes me so happy. And did you notice that these other 3 students immediately started to sit up because they wanted that praise too? So what she did is once they all sat up, she went around to each one and said, thank you for sitting up. You're doing a great job. I love it. You're making me so happy. So she used positive reinforcement with each of the students, not just one. Also, when putting the books away, she gave simple instructions, very clear instructions, which goes back to the 4th suggestion that I gave you, giving clear instructions. She told him, I need you to put your book away, and can you quietly go stand behind the chair? And as he's doing this, she praised him. She said, that's a great job. I love how you're doing that. And she called each student by name and did the same thing. She praised them for doing so well. So she could have highlighted a lot of negative behaviors. The not sitting crisscross applesauce, and she really turned around and used all positive feedback, which is great because you're building these kids' self-esteem and you're really saying, hey, you're doing great, you know, and that's really going to help them in the future. So as I just talked about, they use positive reinforcement. They never said anything negative. They saw the negative behavior, but they focused on the positive to help correct it. Now, on to the very last suggestion I have for you. As early as possible in the report period, decide when and how often to give tests and other assignments that will count towards a grade, and make sure to announce them well in advance. Being prepared with the master plan will allow the students to know what's expected of them, as well as giving yourself a guideline for arranging lesson plans and tests. So if you know exactly what you're going to do, it's going to be easier to plan and to stay on track. That's going to tell you, okay, well, I have 3 or 4 lessons before I have to give this assignment, to stay on track with your yearly SOLs. When you announce your tests, let the students know exactly what the material is that they're going to be held accountable for. You can't just tell them, oh, there's a quiz or a test next Tuesday. That's not going to help them. They need to know what they're held accountable for and what the test will be on. Also, for the tests, you want to tell them how much it counts towards their final grade. This is going to give them an opportunity to see, oh, well, this is 50 points. I got to study really, really hard. I know I can do this, and really help to build them up. When giving a written assignment, like a journal or just a simple writing assignment, give the students a rubric so they know how you're going to evaluate them. So if I give them a little assignment to do over spring break, what did you do? Did you enjoy it? Where did you go? So things like that. Give them a rubric and tell them, okay, these are the specific things I'm going to be looking for. Structure, punctuation, length. Sometimes length can be a factor that you're going to evaluate. So give them that information so they know what you're looking for and what you're going to test them on. So thank you so much for coming out to our professional development afternoon. Please feel free to take these worksheets with you. This is going to help you to remember what we went over today. And please remember that these are just suggestions. It's not a rule, it's not a law that I'm going to be saying, you need to do this and you need to do that. These are just instructions to help you not instructions. I just told you it's not going to be instruction. It's a suggestion to help you improve your instruction for your students. So please take this with you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to share this with you. Thank you for coming.